I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped out of my house that morning. Too quiet was the unusually quiet neighborhood. There was not a single dog barking, no children riding bicycles, or even the sound of sprinklers ticking against the well-maintained lawns. It felt staged, like the calm before a storm. The early morning light shone through the curb where my car was parked, but there was something off about it. The driver's side door was closed, yet the faintest sliver of light reflected from the gap in the window, just enough to suggest someone had touched it. My heart rate increased. I wasn't paranoid. I had lived under scrutiny my entire life, watching over details most people would dismiss. And in this neighborhood, suspicion was a survival instinct. The homeowners association, led by a woman named Karen, thrived on intimidation. Quick pause before we dive deeper. Comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was a predator who knew how to corner people, crush them under obscure rules, and humiliate them until they moved away. Every step was harder than the one before as I made my way toward the vehicle. My gut twisted, warning me, and when I opened the door, the smell hit me first. Sharp, chemical, out of place. My eyes dropped to the passenger seat. A small, clear plastic bag lay there. White powder inside, drugs. For a split second, my mind raced. Had someone broken in? Had I parked wrong? Had I somehow overlooked something? But then the pieces clicked together with a terrible certainty. This wasn't random. This was a setup. And across the street, standing on her porch with a steaming coffee mug in hand, was Karen. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. Not a friendly one. A predator's smirk. The kind that whispered, "Got you." I froze, staring at her, the weight of the plastic bag burning in my vision. She thought this would be the end of me. That the police would arrive? That headlines would bury my name in shame? That she would win? But Karen didn't know the truth. Living in that neighborhood was supposed to be simple, but she had just planted evidence against the FBI director. A quiet suburb where every house looked like it had been copied from a glossy magazine, and the air smelled of freshly cut grass. It appeared tranquil at first glance, safe, ordinary, but under that perfect facade lurked something darker, something suffocating. It started the day I moved in. Karen was the first to greet me, if you could call it a greeting. She strutted across the street in her pressed polo shirt, clipboard clutched in her hands like a badge of authority. Her voice was sharp, sugary on the surface but laced with condescension. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, eyeing me as though I were a new recruit. "We like things done properly here. Don't worry, I'll help you get used to it." I didn't need help. What I needed was space, privacy. However, Karen had other ideas. Within a week, I found my mailbox stuffed with letters, notices for my lawn being a fraction too long, for my trash bins being placed at the curb too early, for a garden light she claimed wasn't regulation. She fined me for trivialities, rules no sane person would enforce, and yet the other neighbors complied. Some do so out of apathy or fear. Utilizing her position as HOA president to strengthen her hold on the community, Karen had developed control over them. She thrived on power, weaponizing it against anyone who challenged her. But I wasn't like the others. I didn't fold. The first time I pushed back was when she tried to fine me for leaving my car parked on the street overnight. She was incorrect because I had read the bylaws thoroughly. When I called her out at the monthly HOA meeting, she didn't take it well. Her face turned red. Her voice cracked. And for the first time, I saw the truth behind her smile. Karen wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was looking out for her throne. I became her target from that point forward. The letters increased. The fines grew in number. She whispered rumors to neighbors, questioning my background, spreading poison in their ears. She watched me with hawk-like precision, waiting for the smallest slip. I had seen this pattern before. Bullies dressed in authority, drunk on their own control. But Karen's obsession went deeper. I wasn't just another resident to her. I was a threat to the empire she had built brick by brick, rule by rule. And so, when intimidation failed, she escalated. Looking back now, every step she took was preparing for this morning. Every rumor, every fine, every glare from across the street had been leading to her ultimate play. A setup, a trap. The drugs in my car weren't just Karen's latest scheme. They were her endgame. But she had miscalculated one thing. She thought I was just another neighbor, bound by her web of rules and fear. She didn't realize that beneath my calm exterior was a life defined by a very different set of rules, the kind written in classified files, the kind that are regulated by federal law, The kind only an FBI director knows, and Karen had just walked straight into my jurisdiction. Karen's obsession with me didn't fade after that first confrontation. If anything, it deepened. She couldn't stand that I had stood my ground, that I hadn't bowed to her petty authority like everyone else. It began with the little things. One morning, I woke to find my trash bins tipped over, garbage scattered across my driveway. Another day, someone scratched a long, deliberate mark into the side of my car. There were no witnesses and there were no cameras. The neighbors just sat there pretending they hadn't seen anything. That silence told me everything. Karen had them wrapped around her finger. People were too afraid to speak, too afraid of the fines, the harassment, the endless targeting. She also became braver as their fear increased. One evening, I caught her standing on the sidewalk in front of my home. She wasn't alone. 2 board members flanked her, both holding clipboards. She scribbled something, looked up at my house, then back down again. When I stepped outside and asked what she was doing, she didn't even flinch. "Documenting violations," she said smoothly, her eyes glinting in the fading sunlight. I glanced around. My lawn was trimmed, my windows spotless, my property in perfect order. There was nothing to document. Nothing real, at least. However, in Karen's world, truth was whatever she chose. The fines started arriving in stacks. Alleged noise violations at times I wasn't even home. Claims that my porch light was too bright. Complaints about unauthorized guests that didn't exist. Like a spider spinning a web, she was carefully weaving her narrative into a paper trail. And she wanted me trapped in it. I remember the breaking point vividly. It was a Friday night, close to midnight, when I heard the knock. Heavy. Repetitive. When I opened the door, I saw 2 police officers in uniform standing on my porch. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, landing on me like accusations. "Sir," one of them said, "we've received reports of illegal activity on this property." Illegal activity. The words echoed in my head like thunder. The source of the report was crystal clear to me. And when I glanced across the street, there she was, Karen, standing on her porch with her arms folded, watching. She looked relaxed, almost content. The officers searched, but of course they found nothing. Still, the message was clear. Karen had escalated her game. She wasn't just fining me anymore. She was trying to stain my name, one false report at a time. But she wasn't satisfied with tarnishing my reputation. She wanted me destroyed. And that's when she devised her most dangerous move yet. The planted drugs weren't just a trick. They were the final act of her campaign. Karen wanted me arrested, disgraced, removed from the neighborhood in handcuffs. She thought she had won. However, she had no idea who she was dealing with. It was the kind of morning that sticks in your mind forever, like a scar. The air was crisp but heavy, the sky a muted gray. It felt like the neighborhood itself was holding its breath. I stepped outside with my keys in hand, coffee steaming in my other, and immediately felt it. The stillness. No birdsong, no distant hum of lawnmowers. Just a strange quiet that wrapped around the street like fog. Across the way, Karen's blinds fluttered. She was awake, watching. I walked to my car, forcing my face to stay neutral. Years of training had taught me how to mask my thoughts, how to look calm when my instincts screamed otherwise. My hand hovered over the driver's door. The faintest smear of fingerprints gleamed against the handle. Not mine. I opened the door slowly. The smell came first. Chemical, faint, and clearly out of place. My eyes swept the interior and landed on the passenger seat. That was it. A clear plastic bag. White powder. Perfectly placed where I couldn't miss it. I froze for a split second. Not from fear, from calculation. The kind of pause when your mind starts running 24 scenarios at once. Karen had escalated. This was her final play. And right on cue, I heard the faint click of a phone camera. I made a small head turn. Across the street, Karen stood on her porch. Coffee mug in one hand, phone in the other, angled just enough to capture me reaching into my car. She had planned this moment like a stage director. The false evidence, the caught-in-the-act photos, the police call she would make any second now. When our eyes met, her smile widened. I picked up the bag between my thumb and forefinger, holding it like it was something fragile and disgusting all at once. It shone a bright white light as the sunlight reflected off of it. In that instant, I saw Karen's entire narrative playing out in her mind. Me arrested. Me dragged off in handcuffs. Her name whispered with awe and fear in the neighborhood. Her power absolute. I set the bag back down carefully. Then I reached into my coat pocket, feeling the familiar weight of my credentials. This wasn't how I wanted it to go. I had hoped to keep my mouth shut and keep my personal and professional lives apart. But Karen had crossed the line. I straightened, my gaze locked on hers. Her smile faltered just a little. Slowly, deliberately, I walked across the street, the bag of powder still in my gloved hand. Every step echoed on the pavement like a drumbeat. Karen shifted her weight, her phone lowering slightly. When I stopped at the edge of her porch, I held her gaze for a long, silent moment. Then I spoke, my voice low, but cutting through the air like a blade. "Karen," I said, "do you know who I am?" Her smirk twitched. "You're a rule breaker," she said, voice high and tight. "And you're about to be—" I cut her off. "I'm the director of the FBI." Silence. Absolute silence. The words appeared to hang there, powerful and heavy. Karen looked up. Her coffee mug trembled in her hand. She had no words for the first time since I had met her. I watched her freeze, a predator caught in her own trap. In that very instant, the game had changed completely and the entire world had stopped. Karen parted her lips, but there was no sound. The hand clutching her mug shook just enough for coffee to ripple over the rim and stain her manicured fingers. Her phone hung uselessly at her side now, the camera forgotten. I don't believe you," she whispered, her voice cracking like glass under pressure. I remained unperturbed as I focused on her. Slowly, I opened my coat, revealing the badge and ID clipped inside. In the dim light, the gold shone. There was no doubt about it. Karen gasped for air. Her entire body stiffened. She instantly lost that characteristic arrogance, the shield she wore whenever she confronted me. She mumbled, You can't, this isn't, you're just a neighbor?" I finished for her, my voice low, steady, deliberate. "That's what you were thinking. That's why you believed you could manipulate, harass, and control me like everyone else. Karen, however, you framed the wrong person. Very incorrect." As if looking for a way out, her eyes darted left and right. However, there was none. She began to feel the weight of her plan and the danger of what she had done. Planting evidence, filing false reports, focusing on a government official. It was no longer petty HOA business. It was wrong. A serious offense. I let the plastic bag float in the air as I held it up with 2 fingers. "This," I said, "isn't just neighborhood drama. It's felony-level tampering. It's a roadblock. An attack on a federal agent is what it is." Karen's face drained of color. Panicked, her breath became rapid and shallow. She made an effort to speak, but her words became muddled and desperate. "You can't prove You can't." "Stop," I cut in, my tone sharp. "You have been observed. You think I didn't notice? The complaints, the damage done, the false police calls. Every step you took was predictable, traceable. I gave it some space. I wanted to find out how far you would go." Her knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the porch railing to steady herself. For the first time since I'd moved into that neighborhood, Karen wasn't the one in control. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "And now, Karen, I have everything I need." The sound of sirens in the distance cut through the silence. Karen's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. She turned toward the street, as if hoping it was just coincidence, but deep down, she knew. They weren't coming for me. They were coming for her. As the red and blue lights crested the corner and washed over the perfect suburban houses, Karen's frozen mask cracked. She gasped, stumbling back into her doorway like prey cornered by its own trap. I stood tall, confident, and calm. For the first time, she understood exactly who I was, and just how badly she had underestimated me. The sirens grew louder, their echo bouncing off the tidy rows of houses until the entire neighborhood was awake. Curtains shifted. The front doors opened. Faces appeared in windows, drawn by the flashing red and blue lights now washing over manicured lawns. Karen's kingdom was watching. In front of her house, 2 patrol cars came to a stop, their doors swinging open as officers got out. Their radios crackled, boots striking the pavement with precision. I remained still, holding the small bag of powder carefully in my gloved hand. As he approached, one officer stated, "Sir, we received a call about suspected narcotics activity." I cut him off, my voice calm but edged with authority. "You'll want to check your records again. I didn't call that number." I glanced at Karen, whose face was now drained of every ounce of confidence. "But I think you'll find the caller standing right there." The officers turned toward her. Karen flinched, her phone still clutched in her trembling hand. "This is a misunderstanding," she burst out, her voice high-pitched, desperate. He had drugs in his car. I saw them. He's dangerous. I was just protecting the neighborhood." The officer's attention returned to me, despite the frantic waves of lies coming from her lips. Slowly, deliberately, I drew back my coat and revealed my credentials. Silence broke out. The nearest officer's eyes widened as he read the badge. His posture straightened instantly, his tone shifting to crisp respect. Director? Karen froze, the words sinking into her like daggers. Director. The title echoed across the quiet street, carrying weight heavier than any HOA bylaw ever could. Her voice faltered. Director? Of what? I turned my gaze back to her, letting the silence draw out until she squirmed beneath it. Then I spoke, my voice steady, unflinching. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Around us, porches and windows let out loud gasps. Neighbors who had once whispered about me now stared with wide eyes. The truth cutting through months of rumors and lies. Karen staggered back, shaking her head. No, you're lying. This can't. But she stopped when one officer stepped forward, cuffs in hand. Ma'am, you're under arrest. The moment her wrists clicked into steel, the last of Karen's facade shattered. The queen of the HOA, the self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood, was dragged down her perfect porch steps in front of the very people she had bullied and controlled for years. Whispers grew into murmurs, murmurs into shock, and then something else. Relief. Karen's fall was not the only thing the neighbors were watching. They were watching their chains break. As the officers read her rights and guided her into the squad car, she looked back at me one last time. Her eyes burned with disbelief, fear, and something else. The realization that she had never stood a chance. The car door slammed shut. The sirens flared again, and just like that, Karen was gone. I stood in the flashing light, the neighborhood silent except for the fading echo of sirens. For the first time since I'd moved in, the air felt lighter. Karen's reign was over. The neighborhood was quiet again. Not the tense, suffocating silence Karen had created, but a calm that felt free. I heard the sound of life returning to a place she had ruled with fear for the first time, as I could hear the night breeze through the trees and the faint hum of crickets. As the last glimmer of red and blue disappeared down the street, I stood at the curb. Karen was gone, but the imprint of her presence lingered. The porch where she had once stood tall and smug was now empty, hollow. Behind shattered doors and curtains, neighbors slowly emerged. Their eyes met mine, some cautious, some apologetic, others filled with quiet gratitude. For months they had been trapped under her rule, too afraid to speak, too powerless to resist. Tonight they had witnessed the truth. Power built on lies always collapses. I looked down at the small bag still in my hand, sealed now as evidence. Karen had mistaken it for a weapon and a way to bring me down. Instead, it had led to her downfall. And in that moment I realized something. It was about more than just me. It was about every person who had ever been cornered, coerced, or silenced by a drunken person in charge. Every ordinary neighbor who was afraid to respond. Every voice crushed under rules meant to intimidate, not protect. Abuse of power never works out well, and Karen was just one face of a larger truth. Not in neighborhoods, not in boardrooms, nowhere else. I felt the badge's familiar weight as I slipped it back into my coat. Most people just saw it as a piece of metal. It seemed like a promise to me, a reminder of the oath I had taken long before I ever set foot on this street. To uphold the law, to oppose those who abuse it, and to protect the vulnerable. That night, Karen's empire crumbled. However, justice did not end with her arrest. It never does. Justice is a choice. A fight you make every day, in every place where fear tries to root itself. The following is my message to you. Never undervalue your own power. Never let anyone convince you that you're powerless. Remember that you are the author when someone like Karen tries to control your story. Because in the end, truth always has the final word. And tonight, the truth set this neighborhood free.